I'm happy to be here. I'm very honored to be asked to go second. Hopefully that's for good reasons. And yeah, so just very happy, so happy to see more people here. I feel like we're headed in a really great direction for our school in the upcoming year, and hopefully week by week we'll see more people coming. So just to introduce myself a little bit, I'm Miss Razo. This is my third year here at Dominguez, third year teaching as well. And so I was going to start kind of by picking off where Mr. Morgan left off last week. He asked us 3 really important questions. Those questions were, why do I teach? Why do I teach in Compton? And why do I continue to teach? So I'm going to kind of answer that, for at least from my perspective, and then kind of transition that into what I guess my teaching philosophy is at this point in my career, which I'll explain by talking about the master's thesis that I wrote now 2 years ago. So why do I teach? Now, that's a question I get from my students a lot. Miss, did you always want to teach history? So I'm very passionate and very excited in my class. And I say, no, absolutely not. If you went back in time and asked 11th grade Amy, if you told her, first of all, that she was going to be a teacher, she would have thought you were crazy, because she would have said teaching is the most pointless, not pointless, but the worst job you could choose for yourself. That's something you do if all the other options don't work out. And then if you would have told her that she was going to be a history teacher, she would have laughed you in your face, because history was her least favorite subject all throughout school. She hated history. She loved her history teachers, but she hated the subject. And it wasn't until college that I realized why. And it was in college where I had my big, one of 2 big aha moments that would eventually lead me into this field. I think the first important class was a women's studies class where I learned about women throughout history. And I was just astounded by all this history that I had never learned, that was so relevant to me, so relevant to half of our population that I had been denied for my entire, education up to that point. And I was mad. I was really angry that it took that long to learn such important information that I could relate to. And so little by little, I started as a political science major, and then little by little I switched into history because I started taking more history classes that I could actually connect with. And so the more I got into that, the more passionate I became, because I was finding relevancy in what I was studying. Now, as far as becoming a teacher, that was another aha moment that came into college. I took Dr. Howard's race, class, and education inequality at UCLA, and I happened to stumble in it by chance. I was a transfer student, and that was one of the only classes that was available, and I was like, that sounds kind of interesting. And that class and that teacher changed, or that professor rather, changed my life. As like the title says, it looks at race, class, and education inequality in this country. And I had realized that I had both benefited from the system as well as kind of felt or was shortchanged by the system, or could have just as easily fallen through the cracks, given my demographics, being first generation, being a woman, being a minority or Latina. So I reflected a lot on my education. I was tracked in 5th grade into the gifted program, which followed me and set the course of my education all throughout elementary, middle, and high school. And I realized that had I not been tested when I was tested, and had that decision not been made when it was made, who knows where I would have ended up. It was by chance in many ways. What if I was a late bloomer? What if my development came in 7th grade as opposed to 3rd or 4th grade? Would that have meant that my chances were done as far as being put on a college course? And so the more I thought about it, and the more I learned just about the other ways that students of color have been historically left behind in our education, I became very passionate about it, because I realized that I was lucky, but that there's far too many that get left behind. And so I met with my professor, and I said, I want to talk about careers in education. So I met with him, and I initially wanted to go straight into a PhD program because I wanted those 3 letters behind my name. And then I realized that it would take 8 years of research to do that. I said, okay, never mind, I don't really want to do that. And I said, well, if I really want to make a difference in education, I have to know what it's actually like to be in a classroom. And UCLA had an incredible teaching credential and master's program that focused specifically on students of color and students of low economic communities. and I was fortunate enough to get in and did my student teaching in Compton, so that's part of why I'm here. I love it here. I couldn't imagine myself teaching anywhere else. And so that's pretty much, that's why I'm here. Why do I continue to teach? Which is a question that Mr. Morgan raised. I think at this point I can't imagine not doing it, and that the idea of my students not having somebody who believes in them or who cares about their education is too much to walk away from. It's hard, but it's rewarding, and they're what keeps me coming back. So that's how I got here. As far as my teaching philosophy, which was one of the things that I wanted to talk about, if I had to pinpoint it into some kind of title, I would say that it's based off the theory of care. And it seems like a very simple term, but I don't think it's one that we take into consideration enough, or at least I think we could take it into consideration a lot more. And where I came up with where I really got a chance to look into this philosophy was in my master's program. We had an inquiry project where we had to come up with a question based on what we were experiencing in our classrooms, and to conduct research within our classroom based on that question. And the question that I had in my first year of teaching, which was the year that I was writing this paper, was I had noticed that while my class was far from perfect, it was very different from what I was hearing my students were experiencing in their other classes. They were being kicked out. They were being suspended. They were getting in trouble a lot. They were failing. And a lot of these things weren't happening in my class. And so I thought, well, like, what's going on? Why is there such a huge discrepancy between what's happening in their room, in their other classrooms and mine? I'm far from perfect. It was my first year, and you guys all know what that first year is like. And so I did have problems, but I felt like I was able to handle my problems or handle my issues with my students within the confines of my classroom. And I didn't think I was too lenient or too easy. I felt like I was genuinely giving them rigorous work, and they were learning and enjoying class. And so I couldn't figure it out, and I wanted to. And so I decided to focus my inquiry or my research on that. And what I started to realize at the beginning was that I think the difference in my class and some of their other classes was that care was an essential component of mine. But I wanted to know, well, what is care? What does it look like? It's an abstract notion. It's an abstract idea. We know what it is, but it's hard to actualize it. It's hard to say, it's hard to put it into action, or to know how to describe it in action. And so I wanted to look at what that was. So I did I conducted my research in a few different ways and came to about four findings. First of all, that our students genuinely do want positive and authentic learning experiences. They do want to learn. Their actions might say otherwise, but deep down they want to learn. And they can learn, just like Mr. Morgan pointed out. These kids have immense potential, and we see it every day. And we need to remind ourselves that all of them are capable of this. Another finding was that in a caring classroom, or as far as students concerned, they want mutual respect. And I learned that a lot of my students weren't. The respect wasn't being reciprocated, and therefore it just stopped and wasn't present at home. And that they really thrived off of respectful relationships with their teachers. And they were happy to reciprocate that when they felt it from their teachers. They wanted to be recognized as individuals. They wanted to, and that's it. They meant that in as simple terms as, I still have teachers, and this was in the spring, I still have teachers who don't know my name. And that was really important to our students, that they didn't feel validated, they didn't feel recognized for their individual needs or for their individual situations. They felt, many of them felt blamed for things that were not, like say if their grades were slipping, they were just labeled as bad students when their teachers didn't take into consideration that they take care of their siblings. You know, they said that their teachers called them lazy when their teachers didn't know that they worked a night job. And so they wanted their teachers to take opportunities to learn about them and understand them as individuals so that they could then, accommodate them in whatever ways they needed. And another one of my findings was how important dialogue is with our students, especially in instances of behavior and things like that. We've all had issues, no matter how long we've been in this. We have defiance, we have attitude, it happens. We're human, and our students are human. But unfortunately, I think our students are far too used to to punitive responses to that and being kicked out or being suspended or being, berated or what have you. And they really respond well to just dialogue. When you can talk to them as a human being and reason with them, they respond very well. Now it's very hard to do that, especially in the middle. You're in the middle of a lesson and this outburst happens. You can't just pause and stop and take them outside and have a nice, calm 5-minute conversation with them. It's really hard. But they did mention that they do appreciate that effort from their teachers. So more importantly, what I found, or what I walked away from that, which is what I want to share with you, is that, first of all, those strategies are things that all teachers can do. It's something we can all do. We don't have to take a course on it. We don't have to, have a degree in it. Those are human interactions that we can incorporate into our classrooms every day, and that we should. And so the question that I raise now is why do we care, or why is it important to care? First of all, care is an innate desire of human beings. We all want to feel cared for, whether we're at home with our families, whether we're in our job, whether we're students, whether we're adults, it doesn't matter. Care is something that all humans want to feel at some point, and especially our students. And I'm sure we're all very familiar with some of the things that our students face outside of these walls. Care is ever more important because of what some of them have to face and live with on a daily basis. Another part of why I feel that we should care is the students are the true stakeholders in this institution. They're the true meaning that we're here, and we get very, it's easy to get distracted by all the other components of this job, and it's easy to forget that really when it comes down to it, they are the true stakeholders, and they deserve someone who cares about their education. And care is a precursor to academic achievement. That before we set these standards about their grades and their test scores and all the other assessments that we seem to have to give them, that we can't expect to accomplish anything in those realms if we don't care about our students. And so it's that at least is why I think we as teachers need to care for our students. Now how do we care? That's one of the things that I loved the most about my research, was that, more importantly, being able to define it was one really great thing, or actualize it was a great thing, but the real thing that I walked away from it was that you do it however or in whatever way it works for you. The way I care is going to be different from the way Ms. Ford might care or Mr. Madrigal might care. It's going to be different, and the great thing about it is you just have to find what works for you. That it's not how or what you do to show you care, it's just that you're doing it and that you're present in that care. It doesn't matter how long you do it. It doesn't matter how deep you get into it. You could be caring for your students on a surface level. You can show them care in just a couple of days. It doesn't matter. It's just that you're doing it. And so that was the great thing. And I see it in so many different ways. I mean, Mr. Ike, just to point you out, Mr. Ike can show his students he cares by the way he dresses. I mean, he is such a sharp dresser. And that shows that he cares about the way he presents himself in front of our students. Mr. Morgan shows his students that he cares by staying really late and coming on weekends. There's so many different ways. There's how rigorous your class is, the expectations that you set for your students. Keeping them in to finish their work shows that you care about their education. And they respond so well to that. At least in my experience they have. And I guarantee that it's the same with other teachers. So where I'd like to leave off from here is asking you guys, do you care? First of all, hopefully you do. If you don't, please leave this profession. This is not the place for you. So do you? And if you do, why? And hopefully it's for all the same reasons, that we value education and that we want to contribute to better futures for students within this community. Do you think your students know that you care? How? If you asked your students, what would they say? How do you show them, or what can you do to show them that you care? And again, it's not about this one uniform checklist of things that you have to do to show your care. You just have to find what works for you, what works within the confines of your classroom, with your expectations, the way you structure your class. So again, it's not how, but it's just that you do it. And so that's pretty much where I'd like to leave talk, so hopefully we can turn this into a discussion.